I'm Jay Moran.
I'm Bridget Jaipal Valenza.
I'm Thomas O'Neill White.
I'm Angelique Preston.
We need to get together and let our voices be heard.
This is What's Next, a dedicated hour to have important conversations about the issues facing the marginalized and underrepresented communities of Western New York and Southern Ontario.
We're going to have some real healing. We've got to have space to tell some uncomfortable truth.
What's Next continues our mission to discuss race,
Equity,
And the common concerns of Buffalo's East Side and beyond.
In the suburban area, everywhere, we must work and teach our children.
And welcome to What's Next. Today, we have a couple of guests. We're going to talk about an upcoming event. It's called Buffalo Fashion Runway Black Carpet. It's coming up on the 24th of February at Northland Training Center. It's called the Celebration of Art, Fashion, and Community coinciding with Black History Month. With us, we have Cain McDermott and also Chad Williams. Gentlemen, thanks for joining us.
Thank you very much for having us.
Thank you for having us.
Most certainly a pleasure. We have a lot to talk about here. Let's just go with the general question. What exactly is Buffalo Fashion Runway? Just give us an idea what that's all about.
Yeah, I say Buffalo Fashion Runway is community. It was a group of five people who got together, each from different realms in the world, and wanted to do something for the creative community in Buffalo. And we got together and we planned a fashion show, not only a fashion show, but just like a art show in general, because we also featured musicians, poets, and we had an event at 500 Seneca Street on September 16th, Buffalo Fashion Runway, Confluence of the Arts, amassed over 300 people in attendance and was able to showcase 6 different local Buffalo designers, music artists, and poets.
Yeah, I think at its core it is a collective. I think in the art scene, one of the most important things are your contemporaries and the people that you work with and the people that inspire you and influence you. And so at the onset of it, I believe it just started as, hey, we want to throw a cool party or a cool fashion show, right?
Sure.
A cool party that highlights different aspects of art that's emerging through this scene in Buffalo that we all believe to be at this cusp of a renaissance, more or less. There's this bubbling that's occurring in the city, and I wasn't there at the onset of the discussions, but from what I understand, it was, hey, let's do something about this. Let's take advantage of this attention on the arts in Buffalo and this lack of the production side of things. So people aren't necessarily showcasing the arts on the same or on the highest level that they could be. And so the 2 original founders, which is Chad and one of our partners, Dan Abatoy, who worked with Boot Sector, if you're familiar, a nonprofit around Buffalo that helps startups gain funding and traction and sort of gives them resources to enable them to, put on the production that they hope to. And so at the onset, it was just, hey, let's get a bunch of creatives in the same room. Let's showcase their art on a level that, they might not have had experienced before with no out-of-pocket cost. And so we set out to do that on September 16th, and like Chad said, we certainly achieved it. We had to lock the doors and not let anybody else in. People were trying to climb the walls and through the windows. And
A good problem to have at an event. Yeah.
Truly incredible, It's hard to get people to sit in a chair for 2 hours and watch a runway that, if they're not necessarily very into fashion. And so we were able to sort of walk that line between something that's entertainment, but something that's also novel in showing the audience what's really going on in Buffalo.
I want to explore that because you both brought it up in your answers there, that the art scene, for lack of a better term, we'll just call it the art scene, but it's really, I think, a lot more than that, because I think even when you say the term art scene, it's kind of a limiting description. But what are the arts like here in Buffalo right now? You were saying it's emerging, it's got a certain energy to it, and perhaps maybe even is ready to go to the next level. Let's explore that a little. Give me some thoughts about that, and maybe even some examples of what you're seeing.
Definitely. So the arts right now in Buffalo is immaculate, I would say. There's so much going on, from the poetry of Jillian Hainsworth, the previous poet laureate of Buffalo, from with Jed family. It's a family full of creatives that do amazing things within arts and then also the community. There's the BAM studio, the Albright Knox Gallery that was just finished getting renovated that will actually have our pre-mixer event there on the 16th. It's burgeoning. It's beautiful. And then like what we want to do with Buffalo Fashion Runway is eventually we want to turn Buffalo into a hub for the fashion and for the art scene, right? Because there's New York City. We're not too far from them. We're like a 30-minute plane ride, 2-hour drive from Toronto. So I feel like Buffalo is just like an essential location for us to be that city.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I feel like for a long time Buffalo's been overlooked, and I think that develops a certain personality, and I think people in Buffalo are aware of that personality. You know, it's kind of like the chip on your shoulder.
Right.
You don't necessarily get all the recognition that that New York or Toronto would, and being sandwiched between those two massive cities, we get a lot of influence from them. We got a lot of people either traveling from those cities to visit or to go to school. So I went to UB, Chad went to Buff State. A lot of the student population is from downstate, from New York. And so I think hearing people that come from the city and their opinion of Buffalo, it makes you want to, stand your ground a little bit stronger. And I think what's going on is that enough people have chosen to stay around Buffalo and create the scene that they want to exist. And so, like Chad mentioned, BAM, Buffalo Art Movement, the Wajeds, which have their studio Eat Off Art, which is all based around, becoming a full-time artist and being able to make ends meet and make a living by expressing yourself genuinely. But then there's also just a massive population of singular artists that are working day in and day out just to express themselves genuinely and trying to hone and perfect their own craft. And so Chad mentioned with our last show we had 6 designers. This show we have 9, and we're not really overlapping many of the returning designers. And so we could probably showcase 10 new designers every month from Buffalo.
There's that many designers.
There really are. And I think that could be a combination of the scene in Buffalo and people understanding that it is about to boil over and turn over into something, or at least that's what we expect. But it's also sort of a mixture of social media and the current paradigm of creatives in general. I think people, for the first time, really understand that self-expression starts with the way people see you, but it's also how you see yourself. And designing your own clothing and putting your own works on your body via garment is a powerful thing, and that's what we're starting to realize. It's very it's a very empowering feeling, which actually kind of falls into Due Process a little bit, I think.
That's your company, Chad, Due Process.
Yeah, Due Process. Thank you for that, Kane. Due Process is a streetwear clothing brand that advocates for social justice, not only through the designs but by the mission as well. We have a mission of donating 15% of every purchase to an organization that advocates for social justice. And then the name is a play on the legal term, which refers to fair treatment through the judicial system, especially as a citizen's entitlement. And that's something that I didn't receive. During my junior year of college at Buffalo State College, I was wrongfully arrested, had to fight for almost a year to clear my name. And then throughout that year, I like to say I witnessed all of the injustices in the justice system, from a judge who looked at me as guilty before innocent to a public defender who did not want to give me the time of day. So then after I was able to clear my name, I wanted to do something to share my story and then the stories of others who were wronged by the system. And then that's when Due Process was birthed, basically like a collaboration between my passion for fashion and activism. And definitely to touch on another point with that being that much designers in Buffalo, there is. So like I went to Buffalo State for economics, but their fashion program is amazing. And more times than not, their fashion program is at capacity. And then when the students graduate, they look for jobs outside of Buffalo. So like that's kind of what we want to change with what we're doing. We want that talent to stay in Buffalo. I was awarded the opportunity to stay in Buffalo because I got a job recently after graduating in the economics field, and that's what opened me to Buffalo. Because when I was in school, I only knew Buffalo State College. I didn't really know anything about the Buffalo community. I didn't know about the east side of Buffalo. But after I graduated and I was able to just work in my professional life, I learned about those things. And it's amazing that the talent that Buffalo owns, and we just have to work on keeping it here to make it that next big city.
You know, you guys in your answers, you're doing a great job in the sense that you keep on bringing up different issues that I want to follow up on. But we've got that's okay. We've got an hour, so let's utilize the time. And if I may, just to prod you a little bit, because the story of due process is both tremendously unfair and remarkable in that sense, but it's also it's a very interesting point. But you got to see what it was like. And I mean, you're a junior in college, economics major, doing what juniors in college do, and you end up getting arrested, falsely arrested.
Right.
Can you, and it sounds like you stuck with it. You did what you had to do to clear yourself of the charges. But can you talk about what it to think of what it must have been like to go through that process, both from the initial arrest to times where maybe it didn't look like, were there times that it looked like you weren't going to get cleared?
Yeah, so to touch on it, it was definitely a rough situation because I'm from Flatbush, Brooklyn. Grew up in a predominantly single-parent household. And you could say, I beat the odds. I beat the odds, and I made it all the way to college without having anything on my record. And then I get to college, I'm doing what I have to do, passing my classes, going to classes, and then also working a job, right? And then I decided to go out one night to have some fun, go out to a club with my friends, and it turns into the worst night of my life. I get wrongfully arrested. And it was a horrible situation because, I looked at the police officer when he was arresting me. I was like, I didn't do it. And he did not care. He was like, don't resist. Right? And, the only thing I did was, I tugged my arm because, he grabbed my arm, and I didn't do anything. So I was like, I guess that's a natural human reaction is to tug your arm, right? So when he said don't resist, it was kind of like, damn, this really happens, right? So it was like an eye-opening moment for me. And then throughout that whole situation of just fighting to clear my name, I still was a student at the end of the day. I still had to go to classes. I still had to take tests. I had to act like everything was normal, all while being a student without a car. I had to go to court. Sometimes I had to go to drug and alcohol mandated classes. I had to call off work sometimes just to make those classes. And this is all for something.
This is all because of accusations.
For accusation that I did not do something that I did not do, right? So I'm just doing all of this unnecessary stuff, but I'm just the type of person, I don't let things bother me. I feel like I'm blessed and I'm highly favored, and I walk with God. So I just knew I would get out of it. So that situation went on for almost a year, and it was a long year because I keep stuff to myself as well. My mom, she did not know. The only person that knew was probably my brother and then my friends who were there when it happened. I didn't tell anybody, right? So because I didn't want them to worry because I knew it would work out, right? So it's definitely a rough situation, but just me being the type of person that I am, I never put my head down. I just took everything with grace, and by the grace of God, I was able to clear my name.
A tough question, but if you weren't black, you wouldn't have been arrested.
No, definitely not. He definitely confused me with somebody else, and it was crazy. And just not the fact that I was wrongfully arrested, right? The fact that the system is just so messed up. So, after the situation that happened, I was awarded a public defender. And as a white guy, a guy named Charles, I'm not gonna put his information out there. I hated him at the time, but now I understand the stress that is put on public defenders. But basically, right, I was appointed a public defender, and I thought it was a clear case, right? Because it was downtown, it was on Chippewa Street. There's a bunch of cameras. So as soon as I got out of the holding center, I tried calling him, I tried emailing him, no answers. When I heard back from him was the day before court, and I went in and I told him everything that happened tonight. And I was like, all you have to do is just go get the surveillance footage. I haven't told this story in a while. This is crazy. I used to tell it. But yeah, I told him go get the surveillance footage, and my name will be clear.
Sounds simple, right? Just on a TV show, that's the way it would work, right?
You would think so, right? That is not the case. We went to court the next day. He did not have the footage, but luckily the defendant, he didn't show up to court that day, so the court date got postponed. Next court date comes, I believe it was a month later. Still does not have the footage. And it was crazy to me. And I was banned from going on Chippewa because I guess the guy who got assaulted, he was an Uber driver. So they thought he would be around that area. So I was not able to go on Chippewa while this whole situation was going on. right? So that kind of hindered me within that month frame of going to get the footage myself. But after that month of him not getting it, I just went to Chippewa and I tried to go get the footage. Behold you, they deleted the footage.
Oh, no.
Right? So now I'm like, damn. Because, like, that was what I was banking on to, like, clear my name. And situation goes on, bunch of court dates, bunch of classes that I had to go to for almost a year. Luckily, at the end of the year, the dude said he was not sure of my identity, and that was enough grounds to get the case dismissed. But, yeah, like, the system is just messed up in that way. And, like, why I said something about the public defender, at the time I didn't know, but public defenders are more often than not overworked and underpaid.
Sure.
So they have more cases than they can handle, so I don't blame it on Charles. Last name to be withheld, but I don't blame it on Charles at all anymore. Shout out Charles. I hope he's doing good.
Well, you know what? And I appreciate, Chad, you sharing that story. And I know we're getting off the topic to a certain extent, but at the same time, you know, it sounds like, first, I want to give you tons of credit for your perseverance. Like you said, the way you described it, that's just who you are. I think for most people, it would be very understandable not to have crumbled somewhat during that. But all that being stated, though, it sounds like it's part of a driving force here now, moving forward with Buffalo Fashion Runway. I mean, how about for you, Cain? When you heard Chad's story, I mean, what did that mean to you?
I mean, I think it was an example of something that you hear about from a third-person perspective often as someone that pays attention to the news or the current paradigm in culture and in the country. And meeting Chad and in hearing the story and then now, you know, growing through business with him, it's become so obvious as to, you know, why he was able to stay as stout as he was during that time. I mean, it's like his demeanor and his spirit and his drive is something that's unmatchable. And so it's something that, to me, I mean, to think that it's something that I have to put myself in somebody else's shoes to really try and consider. And so having someone that I'm as close to as Chad now, it's an opportunity to really to see the light of the justice system that I didn't have.
Right.
So I know growing up in the South Towns, I've been incubated to a certain degree, and anything that I've learned has had to be through self-teaching or to achieve those perspectives or to gain those perspectives. And so to hear this story and to know that someone was put through this experience while also balancing college and a job, and also what it means to just be a young adult, you know what I mean, trying to figure out your life, and to see how he came out on the other side, it's one of the most inspiring things I can honestly hold close to my heart, and I'm blessed to be working with someone as dedicated and as resilient. You know, it makes me yeah, honestly, it's hard to really put into words.
No, I appreciate
completely.
you. I appreciate you sharing, though, for sure. Our guest, we have Chad Williams with us and also Cain McDermott. We're here talking about Buffalo Fashion Runway. Their next event is called Black Carpet. It's coming up on February 24th at Northland Training Center. You guys mentioned 9 designers are involved in this event?
9 different designers, not including Buffalo Fashion House, which is a conglomerate of creatives. Buffalo Fashion House is New Sons, Due Process, St. Dular, and will be the last collection to bless the runway throughout the night. So 12 in total.
12 in total.
Mm-hmm.
So the way Buffalo Fashion Runway started as this group to throw an event, we've sort of transitioned into a production structure for a company and separate from an event company. And so Buffalo Fashion Runway is predominantly focused on showcasing artists around Buffalo, no out-of-pocket cost, on a level that is maybe higher than you would expect, you know, paying a lot of attention to the detail. Whereas through this, you know, procurement of these artists, these designers, and the attendees, and just, you know, putting our finger on the pulse in the creative scene in Buffalo, we've realized there's a massive gap between the desire to make clothing, the desire to make pieces, and the know-how. And so that's where Buffalo Fashion House has come to fruition, where we want to focus on bringing creatives into our studio and teaching them the methods on how to actually create the garments they want, as opposed to them having to work with manufacturers that are on the opposite side of the globe, most of the time, and that you'll have to, wake up in the middle of the night to discuss with. You go back and forth on sampling and merchandising. And so Buffalo Fashion House right now consists of, as Chad mentioned, it's a conglomerate, which we hope to be an umbrella over other brands in the city of Buffalo to sort of act as a support structure. So right now it's Due Process, Chad's brand, New Sons, Studio My Brand, and then our third partner, Rodney Seydular. And so for our first show, Chad and I did a collaborative collection as New Sons / Due Process, as well as the 6 other designers in the show. This upcoming show, we have 9 independent designers and then 3 as a collaborative collection, if that makes sense, to showcase.
Sure.
Yeah, no, that was a great way of explaining it. I couldn't have done it better myself. But yeah, so like to add to the points of Buffalo Fashion House, I started my clothing brand in 2019, and everything that I learned was from YouTube, like YouTube University, and like I would draw out my logo, I would send it to graphic designers, get it graphically done, and then I would hope for the best. I would send it to a manufacturer, more than likely overseas. I started off local in Buffalo, but then it was more efficient to do it overseas to get a higher cost, higher quantity at a lower price. There's many different facets with getting things overseas, right? Like sometimes it could not come in the right size. Sometimes the quality is not what you thought it would be. But since I linked up with Cain and the team, I now know how to screen print. I'm learning how to sew. I'm able to do all of these things.
So
in
it's
Buffalo.
taking a lot of that apprehension
Yes.
and difficulties of working with overseas.
Yes.
You can do it right here.
You do it right here in Buffalo at home. So like we are like we're like the sample thing. So you come to us and you could figure out the exact dimensions of the shirt that you want. And we're able to create that, provide you with the tech pack of sorts, right? And then you're able to go and mass produce it overseas if you want, but you'll have like the right dimensions, but you're able to get that stuff right here at home, and you don't have to go through the struggles of maybe getting a wrong size of shirts or hoodies or something like that.
And it seems to stand to reason, but I'll just ask it anyway. This is helping then creatives to find that, because again, I mean, not to go back to your ordeal with the legal system and make any kind of comparison, but when there are those hills and those mountains, it's easy to just, no, I'm not going to do this. I'm going to go do my 9 to 5. I'm going to, I'm going to walk away from this. But are you seeing that there is that kind of, that not only the opportunity now that you offer for people, but there's just a natural flow of people finding their way to what you guys do?
Yeah. One thing that I love to say is that I don't want people wearing my clothes. I want them wearing their own clothes. And so I think it's kind of like a Trojan horse where we're creating these brands and these collections and these pieces to showcase what we're able to do, but ultimately we want people to come to the door and want to create their own. And we want to pass down the knowledge and create a community of autonomy and sustainability within Buffalo, so that it can become something truly novel, a space that doesn't exist yet, or certainly not here. And I'm not familiar with many around the country where, you teach your local talent how to start to finish create the products they want to exist. Right. And a lot of people that we've met have seen that hill of dealing with manufacturers that it's just emailing, right? I think it's really hard in this day and age to really talk about something you care about or that you're passionate about over email. It's hard to either express the emotion, express exactly what you want with the vision. And so what we're able to do is just sit down with someone, and we've tuned our ears to listen to what they want.
What are you listening for? What do you hear? What are those cues? It sounds like there are cues that you find.
Yeah. Well, sometimes it starts with how they like to express themselves. Is there like a certain type of pant or a certain type of jacket that they have one of that they've been able to obtain maybe through thrifting or through, they just found this piece on a random trip at some point, and now it's their favorite piece, and they won't trade it for the world because of the way it fits, and they want to recreate something like that. But to start with an actual garment and reverse engineer that into a tech pack or into a pattern is difficult. And so unless you're sending that garment to the manufacturer, which I've never heard of anyone that will do that for you. Here, take this jacket that I got from Levi's. Can you recreate it for me? They're not going to do that.
Right.
We can do that. And so we can take the overall silhouette or the size or the fit of the jacket and sort of recreate it, and then allow the artist, the creative, to give their input at different stages in the process, to then make it their own, because nothing that you get that was created outside of your brain is truly genuine to your own. And so when you get to sort of put your own color onto a project, it people tend to be much more attached to them. And so as an example, we were just at South Park High School last week, and we taught a workshop on sewing and screen printing to their junior and senior fashion design students.
What was the response like?
It was incredible. I think sometimes in school there's not a lot of excitement through, or students aren't how would you say it?
Engaged.
Thank you. That's the exact. They're not engaged in the way that you would hope. And I think going through engineering school, I've learned that getting your hands dirty and your hands involved in a project really lights a little bit more passion. And so when we showed up, there really wasn't much of an outline that we came prepared with. It was more so, hey, what do you guys want to make?
Okay.
Like, we have this idea. We have these 2 jerseys that we have patterns for and that we can replicate very quickly. But when we walked into the room, that was the only guide that we gave them, despite the know-how that we brought with our minds. And so as a desire popped up, as a certain, say, a symbol, a student wanted to put a certain symbol on the piece or a certain number, we would walk them through that process of how to actualize it onto the piece. And so that was just kind of like a micro example of that process of bringing a creative into the studio or into our collective, and sort of watching their desire and their behavior to figure out what it exactly they want, because sometimes they don't always know exactly what they want.
Yeah,
you got to tell them that.
Right. Right. Hey, Chad, what's it like bringing all these creative people together? And when you have that type of energy around you, I mean, I know you're an economics major, maybe you always had this leaning toward the creative, but what is it like to see people who are maybe coming in apprehensive and maybe walking out with a little more ambition and a little more hope that they can pull this off?
Truly, it's unbelievable, because I'm 25 years old, and I'm kind of like I say to myself, right? So like I've known Cain for like I think almost 2 years now, but other people on the team I've met and I haven't known, excuse me, for a year now, right? So like Rodney and Iman, I haven't known them for a year as of yet. But now, since we've come together as this conglomerate of like different creatives, I've probably talked to these guys every day for the past 7 months. And I never thought I would have met someone that I continuously talk to for that long at this age of my life. So the fact that we were all able to come together and believe in this vision and work on this vision and work towards making it bigger every day, it was just crazy, because like it's not normal. That doesn't usually happen, right?
Yeah.
It doesn't usually happen. And like for other people to see us and see what we're doing and have like belief, it's amazing. Because like I don't know if Cain wants to talk about it, but like Cain, he was, I don't know, am I able to say this?
Yeah, man.
So Cain, he was Cain was ready to pack it up.
What you don't know.
He's ready to pack it up and go to New York City, right?
Yeah.
So then this conglomerate, when we started getting together and we started cooking up together, he was like, no, I'm not going anywhere. Buffalo is home. Mm-hmm. And like we seen the future in Buffalo now to do something, right? Because like we amassed around like 2,000, almost 3,000 followers now on Instagram. And I think we had the page for about like 6 months now, and it's continuously growing. And like people are seeing what we're doing, and I think they resonate with it so much is because like they see that we're young kids, and we're doing something good for the community.
That also brings me to another question regarding the event that's coming up on the 24th, Buffalo Fashion Runway Black Carpet. And, you know, I at the outset, I said it's a celebration of art, fashion, and community coinciding with Black History Month.
Right.
Let's talk about that element of it, the Black History Month element of it. It's in Black History Month, but I would think that there's more of a connection than just simply the fact that it's taking place in February.
Yeah, no, definitely. So I like to say it's a celebration of diversity through the arts, right? So each designer, they'll be curating their collection geared towards Black history, right? Black history and fashion. So like the Harlem Renaissance times to streetwear to hip hop. They'll each be creating minimum 1 to 2 pieces that are geared towards that theme. And then also we'll be celebrating some Black Buffalo icons, is what we like to call it, like basically like Black figures that are doing great things in the community.
Okay.
So the likes of like Kendra Brim, Mercedes Wilson, they're both doing great things in their work and then also in the community of Buffalo. So we'll be celebrating them as well, calling them the Black Buffalo icons. So for the last walk of the night, instead of traditional models, Buffalo Fashion House will be sending out these Black Buffalo icons to walk instead.
Oh, really?
Yes.
Okay. That adds a little twist to things, doesn't it?
Yes. Anybody could do it, right? 'Cause like back in the day,
I
right?
can think of one person who can't, but that's another story.
You got this. Yeah. You got
I
this.
appreciate your confidence, but I don't have that perseverance that you have.
No. Anybody can do it, right? You know. But yeah, we'll be celebrating and honoring them for like their achievements that they have done.
Tell
for
me more
Buffalo.
about them. Tell me more about their achievements, if you don't mind.
Yeah, no, definitely. So Kendra Brim, she does like a lot of advocacy work, right? She currently has her own DEI consulting company, and then she was also the former president of the Buffalo Urban League of Young Professionals. We have the likes of Valentino Dixon, another wrongfully arrested individual for, I believe it was 27 years, and he does like amazing work in the community. We got OJ, he's an icon. He does a lot of great things with the music, with Benny the Butcher, with Who Was Conway, West Side Gun. Blank and Jillian Hainsworth. How can I forget Jillian Hainsworth? She's amazing. I know Jillian for about like 4 or 5 years now, I think it is. And ever since I met her, she's just been a beacon of light, and she definitely reps Buffalo everywhere she goes, and she goes to a lot of places globally as well. So she's repping Buffalo, so she's doing a lot of good things. Mercedes Wilson, she's an icon living, I like to call it. And she's just like a superstar, from being on the TV to having her own food company as a Black woman. She's doing amazing things. Yeah.
Nice. Cain, I saw you nodding your head there as Chad was talking. What about the Buffalo connection of all of these fashion pieces, these fashion people who are looking to produce their own kind of fashion? Are we seeing things that are uniquely Buffalo?
That's a good question. I think the answer has to be yes, just because.
Or maybe not that easy to identify.
Yeah, it's. I mean, fashion is always influenced by your environment, and so Buffalo is a very cold place. So generally, what people want to do is create pieces that are layered or can be layered. For example, outerwear is huge. Having specific prints that reference, say, different cultural relevant pieces, like the Bills, or obviously the sports teams are one thing, but then also just the rich history of Buffalo in general, right? Go back to 1901 in the Pan American Exposition. The spotlight has been on Buffalo in the past, and I think people through their art want to bring that back. And so I think a lot of the pieces that I've run into over the past 6 months that people want to make are statement pieces. They don't want to fit in anymore. They don't want to be overlooked. And I think that kind of goes back to my initial point of Buffalo sort of being the little brother in New York. A lot of the personalities that I meet want garment that reflect that. And so Jonathan West, for example, who is one of the first people we've contracted through Buffalo Fashion House to create a piece, he wanted a cape. And so that to me is exactly what I want to create, because the way I approach fashion is almost like character building and like world building. So I'm a big Star Wars and sci-fi fan. So I want all my pieces to be able to fall into those realities to a certain degree, or you could see it in the background of a movie and it would fit in.
Right.
And so when we were talking with Jonathan, it was very obvious that he had a similar approach, where he felt as though nothing on the market was genuinely him. And I think it's hard to say how that relates exactly back to Buffalo.
Right.
But because you are born in Buffalo, I think that it's, you can't separate them. It's it may not be obvious, but they're innately linked. And so creating an outer piece or an outerwear piece that is a cape that you can wear inside, and then attach an outerwear piece to that is what we arrived on. And so just as an example, where, someone's personality is able to be woven into a piece that has to also exist within Buffalo. And so it's kind of this simultaneous, it needs to reflect the individual on the inside, but it also needs to be able to withstand the outside environment. And so Buffalo is a unique place where we see all 4 seasons and your wardrobe generally has to change. And so, through that process, we've started to consider, how do you make a piece that can last all year, as opposed to just 6 months, 4 months, 2 months in the summer.
Right.
And so it's an interesting design problem, if you would call it, or a design hurdle,
Right.
to be able to create pieces that don't just get shoved away for half the year.
What about, it's interesting because Cain's story, we have a guy who's almost ready to leave Buffalo to go to New York City.
Yeah.
And then we've got Chad's story, a kid that grew up in Flatbush who came to Buffalo and has stayed in Buffalo. What's been the attraction for you here in Buffalo, Chad? I know you did go back, I guess, for a brief time to New York after you graduated, but but here you are in Buffalo, and it looks like you're vested in investing in Buffalo as well.
Yeah, definitely. So I'll take it back to the origin story. So in 2016, when I graduated from high school, before I graduated, I was a wrestler. I went to go to school and I wanted to wrestle in college, but I got injured my senior year, and that was off the table. I then applied to the great Albany, University at Albany.
Mm-hmm.
That was the only school that I applied to. I got accepted into the EOP program, but they needed a bunch of documentation that my mom didn't have at the time. So by the time she got it, their application process was closed. And then, again, by the grace of God, I seen, I think it was like an advertisement. I forget where it was. I don't know if it was on Facebook or if it was on TV, but the great Buffalo State College was doing overnight admissions or next day admissions, something like that. And I applied. I got accepted the next day. And that's when my journey in Buffalo started. I got to Buffalo, again, from 2016 to 2020.
What did you know about Buffalo before you came here?
Wings. Wings. That was it, wings. And funny enough, I thought Buffalo and Niagara Falls was one thing. I didn't know it was 2 different things. I knew it was wings. Wings and snow, and then, and Toronto was close to it.
Right.
I didn't know much. If I'm being honest, right?
Sure, no. Yeah.
And then also from 2016 to 2020, my tenure at Buffalo State College, I still didn't know much because I was surrounded by people like me, people from New York City, and the things that we do, right? I didn't really explore Buffalo. But after I graduated in 2020, I guess during my senior year, I competed in this business plan competition.
Oh, right, yeah.
I competed in this business plan competition for my company, Due Process. I ended up winning the competition, and there was a networking part of the competition, and I was able to meet the CEO of a not-for-profit venture capital company, and she offered me the job. My lease was ending, so I was working virtual because it was throughout COVID, so I was working virtual. So I moved back to the city for those 2 months, found a place within those 2 months, and then I moved right back up to Buffalo. And then I guess what kept me was the job, obviously, and then also I joined the Urban League of Young Professionals, the Buffalo Urban League of Young Professionals, to meet other people similar to myself and just being a great network of people. And the startup community as well, because Launch New York was definitely in the startup world. So I had both of those communities. I had the startup community and I had the Urban League of Young Professionals. And through both of those, I was able to network and meet dope people and then also learn about Buffalo, explore Buffalo. So when I learned about all the East Side, about the difficulties that the East Side faced. And I guess I was honed in. I was Buffalo, you know? So definitely the Caribbean food still needs help because I'm of Caribbean descent. But we're working on Chef Darian Bryan. He's doing this thing, and then shout out to Mercedes Wilson and her cooking show. But yeah, Buffalo kept me because the people are great. The city of good neighbors, as you guys like to say, right? And then also it's 0 degrees of separation. If I wanted to have a conversation with the mayor, I know someone who knows the mayor, right? And you can't do that in Brooklyn, right? It's just so so. I guess cornered off. You can't really meet people like that, and I feel like Buffalo has the opening for that, right? And then also with my story, everything that has happened to me has happened in Buffalo. My whole adult life has been in Buffalo. I go back to the city pretty often, but I know Buffalo. If somebody wants to know where to go out, in restaurants and stuff like that, I could tell them where it's in the city, but I can't really tell them like that. But if they come to Buffalo, I could let them know where to go, what to do, and stuff like that, you know. So I feel like Buffalo is definitely my second home. Still love the Giants, but go Bills as well. You know, but and then also with last year and then this year, just meeting my brothers with Buffalo Fashion Runway. I feel like we're doing something amazing for the community, and we're doing it at a fast pace, right? We're getting the backing of prominent organizations such as the Buffalo Bills, such as the AKG, such as Virtual Penny, and so much more, right? So just definitely just honing in on our successes and just growing it to be a immeasurable thing that we always just focus on community and giving back.
Stay with us. There's more to come. This is What's Next on WBFO.
You're listening to What's Next, our place to discuss the important issues of our communities of Western New York and Southern Ontario. We want to hear from you. Click on the Talk to Us option in the WBFO app, and we will work to get your questions or comments on the air. Do you have a story or concern that we should be addressing? Email us using whatsnext@wbfo.org. Together we'll have the conversations that are needed. This is WBFO, your NPR station.
We're talking with Cain McDermott and Chad Williams today. Their event coming up, Buffalo Fashion Runway, black carpet on the 24th at Northland Training Center. You know, we really haven't laid out the event, what to expect and things along those lines. Let's get into that a little bit. What to expect? I mean, you had the one event in September, but you said this one's going to be a little bit different.
Yeah, this one's a little more tailored, I guess you could say. We
a nice little
we
choice
got
of
time
words
this time.
there.
yeah, we pun intended. We you know, our first show was 5 guys getting together that have never thrown an event before, and we threw a great event. But the detail that was paid attention to at that point is different than the details we're paying attention to now. And you know, we're utilizing a space, Northland Workforce Training Center, on Northland, just off of Jefferson on the east side. It's a renovated, I believe, steel mill. And so Buffalo has had this massive manufacturing industry at the turn of the 19th century. Or 20th century. I'm sorry.
Yeah. Had me going there trying to get my fingers out.
Yeah. And so I think it's a cool aspect of what we're trying to do is utilize that forgotten about aspect of Buffalo. And so this facility specifically sort of ties into that theme. But on top of that, so we're taking this, you know, robust industrial space and creating a black carpet experience on top of it. And so it's kind of aligned with our mission of connecting to sort of diasporic ideas or concepts, right? 2 things that might not be seen as the same. We're trying to combine them in the same room, such as, you know, the creative industry and the startup industry. Those 2 are innately connected. And I think the rich Buffalo history and the rich future are also deeply connected. And so we're trying to find that connection. But if you want to talk about the event, yeah.
Definitely. So I would like to add to Cain's earlier point too. Like with the first event, we had no proof of concept, right? Like I've been to one fashion show before that, but I didn't really know much about fashion shows and stuff like that. I just always knew I wanted to throw one. I wanted to do process in it, right? So the fact that we were able to come together and create a great time for people, I guess honing in on building or creating the bridge between the startup community and the fashion/creative community, and that was amazing. And we had 2 months to throw that event, so now that we have 6 months to create this event, we have time this time, right? And we have the proof of concept. We did the first one, so now we have the second one, and we have the we have the backing of the community. Excuse me. So we recently had a casting call, I believe it was 2 weeks ago, and we had around like 103 models come throughout the casting call, right? And
wow.
That was beautiful. It went off without a hiccup, and we had so much creatives in the building that day just coming to, I guess, strut their walk, right? So with this next event, with featuring 9 different local Buffalo designers and over 50 models, we want the people to expect everything. I don't want them to think that anything will be left under the table, right? So like, along with the designers and the models doing their thing on the runway, also blessing the runway, we'll have like music performances. We'll have the amazing chords. We'll have poetry with Ito and Leah the teacher. And then also we have a special special announcement for you guys for the halftime show of the show. We have Vogue Buffalo coming to bless the runway with their presence to do their thing. Who else? Who am I missing?
No, I think that
Oh yeah, actually, Evolution, Underrated Evolution. They're like a Afro-Caribbean music group of brothers just doing amazing things, and they'll definitely bring the crowd to their feet.
Okay.
Right, and then also, like I said earlier, the Buffalo Icons, and then also we'll be featuring again in this show our famous Buffalo 10 jerseys, and this was basically a jersey that Kane referred to earlier. It's created through New Sons and Due Process. It was a jersey created to commemorate the lives of the 10 people lost on the 14th at Tops. Basically, on the front, it owns the Superman symbol with the B in it for Buffalo. It's a symbolization for hope. And then on the back of the jersey is the Buffalo 10. And basically, we wanted to show them in the light of being like super beings and not martyrs. And then also who I didn't mention earlier, but Mark Telly and then also Zanetta Everhart. Mark Telly,
Lost his mom in
he lost
the
his
shooting.
mom in the shootings, and that her son Zaire was shot, gratefully not killed. He's still here with us today, and they're doing their amazing things with Zaire and Zanetta's book club. There'll also be some of the icons featured in the show, and they'll be wearing these jerseys to celebrate the lives of those 10 people lost in that shooting.
And I just want to encourage our listeners to check out on Instagram. You can see some of the see those Buffalo 10 jerseys. They really are quite remarkable. Did you guys created that between the two of you, or?
Yes, between both of us.
Wow. The story of those are pretty great.
Yeah.
Chad reached out with the concept, and I happened to be looking at a TV with the concept, not the concept, but a rough idea of what he was texting me. I was watching a show at the time that had a starting point directly in front of me. Like as I was looking at my phone, I said, "Oh wow, this is beautiful." So then I go to bed that night. I walk my dog the next morning. And what do I find on the walk other than a massive roll of fabric, the exact color, thickness, and just an abundance of it on the side of the road in the garbage, completely wrapped in plastic. So it had been untouched, and it still sits in my studio to this day because we have been very stingy, sparsely using it because of how meaningful it really is in the way that it came to us. And it's sort of... It's like a pinnacle of everything we're trying to do, I think, in terms of collaboration, in terms of community, in terms of sustainability. I think the jerseys really kind of culminate all of that energy into a piece of hope and of a symbol of what we're trying to do. And just to kind of go back to what to expect at the show itself, like, as Chad said, we had the proof of concept with the last show. If you see that as like the fence in which we are operating within, we're sure of how to throw a good show. And with this additional time, we've started to fill in the space in that fence. So having more experiences, having more not more genuine performances, but performances that are tailored directly to the show's theme. So our first show is Beyond the Threads, which is pretty evident in the sense of we wanted to showcase things beyond the garment.
Right.
And that's why Jillian Hainsworth, our poet laureate, blessed the stage, as well as Chad mentioned Chords and Ito and Basquet. So it was kind of obvious, and people didn't necessarily know what to expect at the time, so it was easy to give them something they enjoyed. And I think this time around we've really focused on the detail and including artists and designers that really facilitate the message and facilitate the theme of the night.
Just one more question about the jersey. Is that being mass produced? Is that not yet? You're going to be stingy with that, huh, for a little while?
Yeah, so that...
But you have the rights to it. Is that all secured, that kind of thing?
Correct.
Yeah,
so
okay.
we only plan to make 10 total of that rendition right now to exist. And so as they stand with this current fabric, there will only ever be 10 to exist out of respect and out of recognition and honor. And you know, we didn't want to just make something that could represent lives lost and benefit off of it. The way that it came to us was almost God sent in terms of the fabric, in terms of the inspirations, in terms of just the way it actualized themselves, that we really want to treat them with the respect it deserves. And so we have learned a lot about jersey making through this process. So when we worked with the students at South Park, they created jerseys that were similar, but they weren't the jerseys themselves. They didn't have the same symbols. They didn't have the same material. They didn't have the same exact build.
So we can use it as a thought starter more than anything. Yeah.
Right. Exactly. It can sort of be like a silhouette that is recognized as Buffalo Fashion Runway or Buffalo Fashion House, since we came up with the overall pattern of the jersey ourselves that was done in-house. And the manufacturing process is really easy to teach kids how to make garment on. So it's sort of it's a perfect opportunity to further the message without diluting it, if that makes sense. Being able to go around and have the workshops that we work on make the jerseys, and they know what it's referencing to, but they're not making the jersey themselves, if that makes sense.
Yeah, fair enough. Well, what else, Chad? What else should we expect, or should we not expect? Expect the unexpected at this event, right? What do you have for us?
Definitely the black carpet experience. You want to tailor it so everybody feels like it's a night out, right? Like they want to enjoy themselves. We'll have a black carpet for all guests to walk through, take pictures on, get interviewed on. We'll have the wonderful ambiance of unknown to me yet caterer, but the food would be great. Trust and believe. We'll also have wine. We'll have great networking opportunities for you to meet different people. Again, shout out to all of our sponsors and thank you for sponsoring the event. We'll have a one-of-one customized tote bag from Idris himself, honing a solidarity fist. Expect everything. Expect everything.
Constant music, vendors. We have like an exposition area where we'll have different people tabling and representing their brands. Some different photo opportunities. We have a VIP experience that we're advertising and selling, which will be more of the networking opportunity that Chad mentioned. Then on top of that, for a small run of VIP tickets, we're actually embedding technology into the garment that allows you to access the event through the garment. And so this is through another sponsor.
Access the event through the garment.
So it uses this technology called near field communication, NFC tags.
Okay.
And what that does is just sends out radio frequency or radio signals that is detectable within 3 feet. And so what you do is we embed these chips under, say, on your cuff, for example, or under the brim of a hat. And so when our ticketers see an individual with that given VIP ticket on, they'll approach them, they will scan their piece, and then they'll be admitted into the event. And so we're going to be the first fashion show that allows the guests to wear their ticket to the event, which is another example of that merge between tech, startup, and the creative scene.
And it's a black carpet event, so does this mean we're all, black tie, or what do we got? I mean,
no, not at all.
As you can see, I'm not exactly dressed for the event.
You can wear that to the event, and you'll be perfectly fine. And that's an amazing outfit. You look warm, you look cozy. So,
I definitely layer all year long.
Yeah.
Back to your original point.
Exactly. Yeah, 100%. So, the theme black carpet, I guess it didn't really referred to it being like a black tie event, just referred to like Black History Month and just us wanting to have a black carpet, right? So since it is a fashion show, we definitely encourage people to wear what they feel they should wear. We don't want to restrict anybody to wearing a black tie, right? So definitely wear what you wear. You could come in your pajamas if you wanted, and that would be fine, to be honest, right? We just encourage people to be themselves.
You said, 300 were at the event in the fall?
Correct.
Yeah. I would say, what kind of expectation could you have for this? I mean, what kind of capacity is the Northland? I know it's a massive complex, but yet I can't imagine you're sprawled all over the complex.
No, so they gracefully gave us the use of the gallery space. That's like where the runway will be housed. And then we also have access to the community room, another huge room as well. So we're looking at around definitely 350 plus people inside of the Northland Workforce Center on February 24th from 5 to 9 p.m.
Buffalo Fashion Runway. Black Carpet at Northland Training Center. Chad Williams and Cain McDermott, appreciate you sharing with us. I guess one other story we got to tell people is the way you guys met. This is an unbelievable story.
If anyone's familiar with jiu-jitsu or just martial arts in general, Chad and I met for the first time at an open mat event at Western New York MMA, where all we knew was each other's name. We slapped hands, bumped fists, and then we sparred for 5 minutes. And let me tell you, within 5 seconds, I was about 4 feet off the ground. And a second later, I was on the ground. And honestly, it's the best story of a true brotherhood start. You know, I couldn't have asked for a better start or the way to be introduced to someone. Like it's just a tearing down of boundaries in a moment. And here we are because of that.
I know, and it's a beautiful thing, man. I love
you,
bro.
Yeah, I love you too, man. It's incredible. This is.
Well, I was encouraged by your story of getting together with like-minded people, but I might pass on the opportunity to get sparred with.
Yeah. He's a wrestler.
Again, Chad Williams and Cain McDermott, thanks very much for joining us on What's Next.
Thank you so much.
This has been What's Next on WBFO and WBFO HD1 Buffalo, WOLN Olean, WUBJ Jamestown, your NPR station.